Hello and welcome back to AusBiz as we get this year underway. I'm Andrew Gagan. Great you can join us here for the Global View. Let's take a look at what happened on Friday. Global stocks rising to begin the new year. European shares began at record highs with a boost from tech and defence stocks. London's blue chip FTSE 100, its index hitting the 10,000 point mark for the first time. On Wall Street, the Dow and S&P 500 ended higher, snapping a four-day losing streak, but there was no Santa rally for the S&P, with it falling to a monthly loss in December, but the index climbing more than 16% across the course of 2025, its third straight year of double-digit percentage gains. Chip stocks rallied on Friday, led by Nvidia and Intel, while several market heavyweights such as Apple and Microsoft fell. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq were also pressured by losses in consumer discretionary stocks, including Amazon, while Tesla slid after the annual sales fell for a second year. For the full year, the EV maker delivering 1.64 million vehicles, compared with 1.79 million the prior year. Berkshire Hathaway's post-Buffett era began on Friday as shares slipped slightly after the Oracle of Omaha handed Greg Abel the top job following 6 decades at the helm. US listed shares of gold miners soared as bullion resumed its historic rally. The copper miners, including US listed shares of BHP and Rio, tracking the price of red metal higher. And the rapidly moving events in Venezuela will be a focus for global investors this week. The country is estimated to have the world's largest oil reserves, but output has plummeted over the past decades amid mismanagement and a lack of investment from foreign firms after oil operators were nationalised. That included the assets of ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips, while Chevron is the only American major currently operating in Venezuela. Well, the capture by the United States of Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has sparked deep uncertainty about the future of the oil-rich South American nation. Maduro is in a New York detention center awaiting a court appearance tonight on drug charges. US President Donald Trump ordering his seizure from Venezuela on Saturday and said the US would take control of the country. But in Caracas, top officials in Maduro's government, who have called the detentions of Maduro and his wife a kidnapping, are still in control. Meanwhile, on the data front, it's a potentially pivotal week in the US ahead of the next decision on interest rates, with employment data due at the end of the week. Other data includes manufacturing and services sector activity. And US Treasury yields edged higher in the New Year's first day of trading as market participants look at the employment reports. The yield on the 10-year note was up more than 4 basis points to 4.19%. And the US dollar beginning the year stronger. The Aussie also trading higher there at 66.9 US cents. Well, analysts expect the oil market to easily absorb any possible halt to production from Venezuela, which accounts for less than 1% of global supplies. It's expected that it would take years to see any meaningful boost to crude output from the South American country, even if US oil majors do invest the billions of dollars in the country that President Trump has promised. On Friday, Brent crude futures closed down slightly at around $60 a barrel. And OPEC Plus kept oil output unchanged on Sunday after a quick meeting that avoided discussion of the political crises affecting several of the producer group's members. Precious metals began the first trading session of the new year by building on the major gains of 2025 as geopolitical tension and expectations of US rate cuts keep demand for gold high. In the wake of Venezuela's crisis, spot gold at $4,330 an ounce. Copper surging more than 3.5%, and Bitcoin that has risen above 91,000 US dollars. Well, to get across what's moving markets at the moment globally, particularly with a focus on those developments out of Venezuela, I caught up with Jonathan Tacadena from MPC Markets.
What I was about to say was actually quite a quiet 2-week break for equities. Most of the action was actually in precious metals. Like silver had that massive run up to, I think it was like 82 at one stage on the spot or the futures, depending on which level you're looking at. And I was actually, doing our morning report, and I was, getting it ready on the Saturday, saying that, it's actually been a quiet 2-week break. And then, on Saturday, obviously we had the news with USA taking out Maduro. So now we've welcomed the new year, and now we've had our first sort of news spike and ready to see how the markets react to that.
Well, I mean, what is the expectation there? I guess given it's anticipated there that essentially that Venezuela has the largest oil reserves. However, I think they only make up about 1% of global supply.
Yeah, so it just depends on who you're listening to in terms of the energy supplies. I've actually been following a few energy analysts over the months. Excuse me there, and they've been telegraphing this well in advance. They've been actually following the ship activity within the Gulf, and said that look, the USA is sending a considerable fleet there. They're not doing that just to stop a few narco terrorists. And so if you had been following it from that lens, this is actually all been telegraphed quite well. And now it's just a matter of how does the market react to this. From what I've seen in the FX markets, which is the first to actually come off the board, they started trading about 45 minutes ago. We're seeing less than 1% moves in either direction. So there's no real risk off or risk on sentiment at this stage from the FX perspective. Probably the most notable move that I saw was that Bitcoin actually jumped after this news hit, and it's trading around $91,000. So Bitcoin, it's stuck between the store of value narrative, or is it a risk on, risk off parameter? The fact that it's jumped, it's acting like a store of value. So I think the easier trade going into this will actually just be long precious metals. I think the gold and silver spike should continue to jump from here, and obviously following that whole complex.
All right, so obviously those precious metals likely to get a boost given what has just transpired. Longer term though, Jonathan, how are you seeing precious metals play out for 2026?
I think longer term, the fundamentals are still there. I think what we've had, and if you do follow that move in silver, we had a massive short squeeze. Looks like somebody got taken out when it hit the low 80s, and now it's kind of just trying to. It'll take a while to actually find some footing because we're going to be in a heightened volatility period. But mentally, I think that just as long as silver doesn't spend too much time under the mid 60s, I think the uptrend's still intact. And similar with gold, like gold did spike out to new highs, but I still think around that 43.50 is support now, and we shall see how the market reacts to this. But obviously, it depends on who you're listening to in terms of this whole move. Obviously, Trump saying one thing about the taking out the narco terrorists and the drug cartels and taking out Maduro. Others will say it's for the oil, and either way, it just shows that we are in a very unstable period geopolitically, and I do think that a store of value, something where you can actually hide your wealth away from the US dollar, will continue to be bid. So that's why I still think that the precious metals, any dips have to be bought because this is still one of the themes that will continue, and it's been going on for quite a while. And a lot of people are asking, will it top out here? And I do think that it might actually take a while to digest that big move up over the last 2 weeks. But that underlying thematic, geopolitical tensions, de-dollarisation, the debasement trade, that continues into this year.
And Jonathan, when you take a look at the local market, what are the likely drivers, do you think? What are your expectations for the ASX 200?
So what I've noticed over the last 2 weeks, or even the last 6 weeks, it's just been barely flat. So the XJ has just been trading around that 8,600 level. We did have a pop, I think about 3 days before Santa came, and now that we're trading around 8,700. But overall, I think we're going to be led by the US, and that looks more like it's topping out there and could actually roll over. But every time that I think that the US is about to roll over, someone finds a bid there and just pushes it up. So at this stage, it's a wait and see. But I do think that the XJ will probably just hang around this 8,700 level for most of today. And while we're digesting, that over weekend news, I don't see large moves in either direction.
Jonathan Tacadena from MPC Markets. So let's now focus on where we're likely to begin. Just taking a look at the SPY futures there, up more than 0.1%, as you can see. So a positive start expected for the first full week of trading here on the ASX. Now, of course, the focus very much is going to be on the energy markets today in the wake of those developments we've seen out of Venezuela. And we're going to catch up with some analysts to talk oil in particular across the course of the day. Stay with us as we get across the open in just a couple of minutes.